Episode 52.
Welcome to Seeking Focus, a podcast that provides photographers and videographers with a place to critically compare technology, share ideas, and enhance their skills.
How are you, Marty?
Hey, man. It's been a long time, my man.
I worked it out. It's like just over 4 months.
Shoot, 4 months.
It has been a long time. And we do apologize to everyone that we've taken so long to do another episode. Last you heard from us, we were traveling on a big trip. We were heading to Vietnam and Cambodia. And then we basically got back from that and Marty went off gallivanting again. I couldn't because I had work. But you traveled off to New Zealand?
New Zealand, baby. Yeah, we did I did the Milford Sound. So Milford Sound is South Island of New Zealand. And it's very well known for an amazing hiking locations. You know, you're hiking through the fjords. And, mate, it was a phenomenal trip. Phenomenal.
And then after you got back and I got into my work and you got back into your work and then you started traveling around Australia and you've gone to Queensland.
Well, for work, yeah. So
Yeah.
I had a couple of trips for one of my clients. They've got multiple different locations. And they wanted me to go and do Sydney, Brisbane, and then our far end, well, top end Cairns as well. So about an hour and a half from Cairns in this little town called Gundy Hill, which was actually quite interesting. But that was a 3-day shoot there as well. So
It is fantastic. And every time I speak to you, I'm like, hey, how's it going? You want to catch up? No, I can't. Because you're always traveling. And ironically, we're actually recording this episode via the internet because neither of us could actually find the time to meet up. I think you actually made enough time to meet up with me today, and I unfortunately had to take care of the kids.
yeah.
So we're doing this via the internet. We figured it's better to do an episode via the internet, much to Marty's disgust, but it's better than not doing one at all. So there you go.
That is true. Look, we've been taking a while now, and I'm sure people are sort of waiting for the next episode and see what we are up to and what we are doing. And, you know, I think both of us, work, family, and everything else sort of gets in the way. And as we all know, we don't do this for money. We do this for fun.
So this episode, we were just going to do a bit of a recap about the actual trip to Vietnam and Cambodia and talk about our experiences, what we found was really great. I spent a lot of time there doing photography, and a lot of those photos are available on my Facebook page with a history and story behind each one of the pictures. All right, so we started off in Melbourne and we flew into Vietnam, Ho Chi Minh. I think we spent probably about 3 days there just getting our bearings and getting used to the culture. And look, for me, it was a huge culture shock in a good way because I actually enjoy that type of thing, but it was hugely different to what I had experienced with traveling other places. How did you find it the first few days?
Hot. I haven't actually been to Vietnam before, so this was the first time. And I think, sort of prior to the trip a little bit, we talked about which gear to bring and what to sort of what to experience in that space. So I think, it was a culture shock from a perspective of busyness compared to Melbourne. From, people everywhere. You go to the markets, you got amazing restaurants, with Vietnamese food. But, I think, before we sort of get to that, do you feel like we should be talking about the gear that we brought with us?
Yeah, because we actually did spend the whole episode trying to figure out what we were going to bring, and what we ended up bringing was probably completely different. And then in hindsight, we regretted what we did bring with us, well, at least I did anyway. I ended up taking the R5C, yeah. So I took that along. It's a still camera plus video camera, so that's why I purchased it, so I could do a bit of both. But I think 98% of the time I actually did photos. I really enjoy doing photos when I travel, so I stuck to photos. I ended up taking the 24-105 Z series lens, the big ginormous one, which weighed a ton.
The 2.8.
For the most part, I think in hindsight, I could have probably taken an F4 and probably had the same outcome. There was a few shots that I shot at 2.8, but for the most part, I think I could have gotten away with using the F4, which would have been way lighter because that Z series lens weighs a ton, and it is a huge inconvenience is you got to carry in a huge backpack. You can't have a small backpack with that. So I was walking along with a full hiking backpack everywhere I went. Let's go to the swimming pool. I'm taking my camera. So
and also mentioning that it's also very expensive as well, isn't it? Like, the whole gear that you brought with you, that's probably just over 10,000 Aussie dollars in the space.
It was probably bordering on closer to 16, 17, because the lens is 6.5, I think it was, and the camera was about 6. And then I had all the filters, and I actually did bring a secondary lens, which I never used, which was a wide-angle one. I didn't need it. So there was a lot of gear that I brought, and there was a lot of filters as well. I was using black mist, I was using gold mist, I was using CPLs, I was using everything under the sun. Realistically, I mean, look, the gold mist was kind of a nice touch, I think. Probably could have once again gotten away without using it, but it did add a nice glow and a hue to sort of all the sunset sort of shots or the sunrise shots. Not that you really needed it, because there was a lot of yellow everywhere. It was really bright.
And you've done a lot of street photography too, right? So from that perspective, the 105 was actually probably good. But another way of sort of looking at it, it was just sort of, because street photography is fairly quick and, take it out, shoot, go. Yeah. Like you probably don't really need to go that extreme, right?
No, it wasn't necessarily. Look, I mean, I'm glad I took it. It's a great lens, got some great photos. It served its purpose, but it was an extremely heavy camera. Now, I'm a big set guy. I'm tall. People leave me alone, so the security side of things wasn't a problem.
And you look mean as well.
Yeah. That sounds more like a pirate, but anyway. But yeah, so people generally leave me alone. So I wouldn't recommend someone who isn't feeling secure about themselves and, doesn't have that presence to scare people off. Even walking through markets and stuff, like there was a lot of those markets where there's hundreds of people everywhere. I didn't have a problem with that being strapped to my wrist and walking along. But yeah, probably not something I'd recommend traveling, generally speaking. But I have to say, I actually felt quite safe in Cambodia, and in Vietnam. Once again, I actually felt quite safe. I know there is pickpocketing and stuff like that, but I just didn't feel insecure there. Like I felt that I could, I'd be fine. And once again, we came back. I wasn't missing anything, so that's in my favour.
Yeah. So recapping your one, so the Canon body, the RC, what is it? RC5?
R5C.
R5C.
It took me a while.
24 to 105 2.8 lens.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You brought a tripod with you as well?
Yeah, I do. I've got a little tripod, a little flimsy
Benro, wasn't it?
Benro carbon legs. It's got a Manfrotto head on it, so it's just over 1 kilo. And look, it is a bit flimsy in wind and stuff. I wouldn't be using it, but it works.
Did you actually use that tripod with that camera, or you not really? Because I don't actually remember you using it.
I did. When we were, I think it was in Cambodia, we were up at the palace, and we were doing time lapses and not time lapses, sorry, long exposures. Yeah, so I did a number of those. I mean, in the daylight, I didn't need the tripod because it was ridiculously bright. Yeah. But during the night. Yeah, I did use it occasionally, and sunset shots as well. When we were, like, for example, in Koh Chang, I think that's the way of pronouncing it. We have to apologise. I'm really bad at pronunciations, and I'm going to get all the names of the towns wrong. It's not because I'm trying to be rude or anything. It's just I'm really bad at pronouncing things. So apologies in advance, and don't mean to offend anyone.
Yeah, and Angkor Wat, I think, is probably one of the main, like all the temples that we went to. That's when we sort of took out the tripods and sort of went with it. Yeah. And then you mentioned also a couple of filters, right? So did you bring an ND filter?
I did. Didn't actually end up using the ND filter. I did use the mist, the gold mist and the black mist, which were, I believe, from Polar Pro. So they're Polar Pro branded. And I generally stick to Polar Pro when I'm working because I enjoy the color that they produce. And, it's very minimal changes to the image itself. So that's why I like using them.
Mm-hmm. So that's pretty much it, yeah? Like you didn't actually bring a GoPro this time or you didn't?
No, I did. I brought a GoPro as well.
Oh, well then, come on.
Oh, sorry. There you go. I brought a GoPro as well. So I did bring a GoPro. And
you got the GoPro 13, don't you? Or...
Yeah, the latest one. I bought it from someone who bought too many of them and they had a spare one. And he goes, oh, do you want it?
Yeah, so look, it wasn't a huge amount of gear that you brought. I don't think it's
No, but it was
it
really
was
heavy.
very much a travel sort of end. With myself, I was in a similar space, so I brought my Sony A7 IV. And now the Sony A7 IV is actually quite a compact camera, as we all know. The probably a bit smaller than the Canon that you got, but I also brought a. So I had 24 to 70 2.8 lens, and also a ND filter as well, which I don't think I've actually used that all much as well, because mainly the ND filter I use for for video production more than anything else,
Yeah,
which I
we'll
haven't
make it
actually
nice
done.
blur.
Yeah, so like trying to obviously get the shutter speed a little bit, slower rather than, very quick and very jittery. What else did I bring? I brought my GoPro, and I done a lot of time lapses on those. As much as you know, I do love my time lapses.
I have to say, I think you used your GoPro more than you used anything else. I think that was your go-to
I
camera.
agree. I think the A7 IV that I've used once for time lapse, and then literally I think I probably took all up probably about 50 images, which is next to none. You know what I mean, for what I normally do. So I think I got a bit maybe a bit overwhelmed, and because I do this for work, I think it's probably one of those things where you want to experience the experience without having a camera in your hand anymore if you're doing this for work.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, for me personally, whenever I travel, there's certain people who carry their camera and they're constantly taking photo after photo after photo. I prefer to go to a place, soak up the atmosphere, and if I feel that something is actually captivating me, that's when I pull out the camera and try and replicate that feeling in a picture. So I wasn't overdoing the photos, but I actually did take quite a few. Cough, cough.
Yeah, I know you did. Because you were always with your camera. But then, like, being so expensive, my A7 IV camera, as in, the Sony, I think the body alone is probably about $3,000 or something these days, which is next to nothing compared to what you got. And my Sony lens, the 24 to 70 2.8, that's only sitting around the $2,000 mark as well, which is a lot more affordable. I took a tripod with me as well, which I kind of really use for my time lapses as well. Mainly for the GoPro, as you mentioned. I mean, I'm pretty happy with the GoPro at the moment, and
it's an amazing camera. The GoPro has become an amazing camera. And the quality is superb.
I can't remember if I brought my. I'm pretty sure I brought my DJI Action 5 as well. So I did bring 2 action cameras. I do like the Action 5 because it's a really good low light capability. And Action 6 just recently came out, so I'm thinking maybe I should pick that up as well to make my life easier. But overall, I think the trip was very much, for me, was just pretty much a soak up the atmosphere, the culture. We went to some amazing restaurants in Ho Chi Minh City.
Throughout the trip, we ended up going to other like 5-star silver service sort of restaurants, and it was the equivalent of going to McDonald's here in Australia, which I found bizarre, but we definitely did take advantage of that. So,
the restaurant, I'm just looking for my photos, and basically, I think the restaurant's called Bep Me In, BEPMEIN, and it's a Michelin star restaurant, and they won a Michelin star in 2023, 2024, and 2025. There you go. I think one of the times I ate so much I couldn't even walk home. I mean, back to the hotel, So it was pretty impressive.
Like you. That's something I would do. Taking a step back. Sorry, there was one camera you didn't mention. You forgot to mention one camera.
Which one's that?
Your drone.
Oh yeah, I did bring the drone. Actually, you're right.
You did. It was in every photo that I took.
Yeah, so I took the Mini 3 Pro, and it's such a small drone that you essentially, you can fly without any problem. Saying that though, and from memory now, there is quite strict rules around flying drones in both Cambodia and Vietnam. So I took it out a few times when we were on the island, and we were just bike riding around the island. But most of the time, it was just sort of packed away in my suitcase. It's a tricky one with drones. I think anywhere you sort of go around the world, you just got to be very mindful of local laws and regulations.
Yeah, but the thing is that the DJI Minis are such small drones that basically you could throw in your bag, and even if you don't use them, they weigh nothing. It's sort of the weight of a GoPro, so you can take them along. The only problem is I've heard of rumors that you might go into an area and they actually confiscate your drone off you because you're not allowed to have drones in particular areas.
Yeah, look, a few years back, I actually went to Peru. At the airport, we were arriving in Cusco, actually in Peru. We were stepping off the plane, and the customs officer stopped me, and he goes, "Do you have a drone?" And I was like, "Do I lie or do I tell the truth?" You know what I mean? Because
they've already scanned your bag, so they probably already know the
answer.
answer.
Probably, yeah. So, and I said to them, I said, "Yeah, I do." And he goes, "Okay, so I can take it off you." So he was going to confiscate it, unless you promise that you're not going to be flying around any of the historical ruins and old castles and whatever they've got, the Inca. So I was like, okay, look, I do it because obviously I knew there's going to be very hefty fines if I do get busted for it. And like at the end of the day, you don't want to be locked up in a jail for something stupid like that. You know what I mean? So
yeah, exactly. And look, some of these countries, their rules are a little bit more stringent than ours, so don't take the chance, But yeah, look, all right. So we landed in Vietnam. I think we sort of tried to get our bearings. The heat was killing us at that stage. Like I said, between 30 and 40 something. So I think at one stage it was rated at 45. I don't know if we actually ever got there, but it was ridiculously hot. And when it rained, because there was a lot of rain as well, you couldn't tell the difference because you're so wet from the sweat. It looked like you were covered in rain anyway. So we landed in Ho Chi Minh, and I think the first day we sort of went around and just walked. We kept walking. We sort of soaked up everything. We do a lot of walking when we travel, and so we went to the Central Post Office in Saigon, Notre Dame Cathedral in Saigon again, the Opera House, the apartment cafes. Do you remember the apartment cafes?
Yeah, that was pretty cool, actually.
Yeah, so for people who haven't seen it, it's basically just a whole bunch of apartments in the middle of the city.
Like a big apartment building.
Yeah, big apartment building, but each one of the floors and each one of the apartments is actually a different cafe. I think it was like 15 stories high of just cafe after cafe after cafe. Yeah, it was quite high, yeah. And there was like 4 or 5 apartments wide, so there was 4 or 5 restaurants or cafes side by side to each other. So it was chockers, and each had a graphic out the front, so it looked really artistic on the outside. I've actually never released any of those photos. I actually probably need to do that. And there was an elevator, but to get into the elevator, you had to make a donation. And us being tight asses like we were, we decided to walk up. Now, mind you, it's like, say 40 degrees. We've got backpacks on with camera gear that weighs a ton. And we're hiking up 10, 15 stories. By the time we got to the top, we were like, water. All because we were trying to save 20
not water,
cents.
Beer.
Beer.
You have beer?
Yeah, and the funny thing about I think we consume more beer than we consume water because, ironically, beer was cheaper in both Vietnam and Cambodia than water. I'm still trying to figure that one out, but I think it was $1 for a can of beer.
Yeah, it was something like that. Yeah.
It was just ridiculous, So it just literally, you drink it and you wouldn't even get drunk because you just sweat it out straight away. So then we went to the Ben Thanh Market, at the Rembrandts Museum, and also to the Independence Palace. That's the first day. So we're getting around, we're hunting around, we're doing the crazy stuff. I think second day we sort of took it a little bit easier.
We saw the war area where they basically show the
yes.
Is it Mekong? Is it not Mekong? What is it called again?
Sorry, I can't remember. But it was basically they gave you a rundown of all the different ways that they showed traps. They showed you different guns and stuff that they use, and you were able to use them. You were off using a semi-automatic rifle and shooting that. There was an M80 there as well that you could use. Of course, I think each bullet was like $10 or something. And the amount of bullets
I don't remember the cost of it, but yeah, it was quite expensive. I think like going to a place like that, you sort of learn so much more about the history as well.
Yeah.
And I think I learned so much more about the Vietnamese War, or the war in Vietnam, why the Americans sort of invaded or came through. And you know what? It's like, long story short, it's all because, they were fighting against communism, you know what I mean? And so many people lost lives, and so many kids, lost parents, lost lives. And it was just something that was very much not necessary, you know what I mean? To a point where it's just like, you learn why it happened, and you sort of refresh your memory from school days, and try and understand what was actually happening. You know what I mean? But I think just from that, just a history lesson alone was really good. You know what I mean?
And also getting a chance to see the little traps that they used, the tunnels. Getting to crawl through the tunnels. I actually couldn't fit into the tunnels, so I just literally stayed at the top, and I said, "You guys have fun down there." And you would come out crawling out of another area, and I'd be looking at you, and you guys are like, "I'm never doing that again. I'm never doing that again."
It's like the Forrest Gump movie, when the lieutenant goes, "Go check out that hole, Evan." And Evan goes, no, I'm too fat, too big, and I can't do it.
I even if I wasn't too fat or too big, I still wouldn't have gone in there. But it does give you that first-hand sort of experience and understanding of what people went through there. And I don't think you really realise what it was all about until you go and you actually see what's left, and it really puts it in perspective.
Yeah. And in that space as well, like I actually, didn't really I've taken my camera obviously there, but like my phone was the main primary camera that I took photos with, because I've got the 13, I think it's 13 Pro Max, and it's a fairly old camera now, or it's a fairly old phone, but the photos are still pretty impressive on it, you know what I mean? So not as good as my Sony, but like for what it is, you just point and shoot, and
it's easier than pulling out the camera and having to take lens caps off. And
like a lot of people come up to me and they go, like, "Oh, hey, I'm going to do this overseas trip and everything else. I don't really do photography, but I want to buy a camera for this trip." And I was like, "Don't buy a camera, man. Like, just buy a good phone." You know what I mean?
Yeah. Or a GoPro. GoPro also.
Oh, GoPro, yeah, well. Amazing, yeah, fantastic, yeah.
Yeah. So we stayed there, I think 3 days all up before we made our way to Cambodia. And so what ended up happening was we were planning on using a bus service, like a shuttle, to get us there. It's a 6-hour bus ride, and I wasn't looking forward to it because I've got long legs, and sitting in buses is the most uncomfortable thing because you get your knees pressed up against the chair directly in front of you, very similar to the aeroplanes. I'm not sure if you remember the aeroplane. I should mention this later on, but I'll bring that one up later. It's a bit of a comedy act, but anyway, so we ended up going. We had purchased tickets in advance, probably 4 or 5 months in advance, and we got there with our tickets, and we said, "Oh, we're here to catch the bus," and they looked at us and they said, "Oh, there's no reservation for you," and we're like, "Well, hang on a sec. How can we not have a reservation? We've got the tickets." And they're like, "Oh, but it's not on the system." Yeah, it's been paid for. Everything's done. And here's the tickets. And they're like, "Oh, but there's no reservation." And we're like, "So what does that mean?" And they're like, "Well, there's no spots left on the bus." And we're like, "Excuse me?" So, it ended up becoming a bit of a, kerfuffle for a while. And then out of nowhere, a little minibus, sort of a luxury minibus, I might add, I probably should put that in, shows up. And they say, "Okay, we'll take you with this bus." And we're looking at this bus, and it's got reclining chairs and massage, there's massages in the back of the chair. It was full on luxury. So we got this exclusive bus to take us over the border, which was impressive, I have to say.
The only reason why really that happened is because one of the guys that we were traveling with, he was kind of cracking the shits with them. He say, "Hey, your reputation is online here. We can leave number of different reviews on your business, and we need to be able to. We purchased something, and we want to be able to get what we purchased for at the end of the day." You know what I mean? So he basically was very. Firm, a bit forceful, firm, as you kind of call that. And and I think they sort of realized that there's four of us, so it's not like it's a single person or whatever else doing it. So we just jumped into this bus, and it was actually quite impressive. They gave us food, a bit of chips, a bit of drink, sandwiches.
Water.
We had a bit of
No beer, unfortunately, but by this stage we had gotten used to the beer.
Yeah, that's true.
That's true.
So then we made our way to Cambodia. To which city?
Do you remember the crossing between the border? I got lost.
Oh, that was so confusing.
Border crossing. I didn't understand a word. It was all hand motions and stuff, and I got separated from the group. There was four of us traveling, and so here's me walking around aimlessly in the middle of this border area, trying to figure out where everyone's gone. And I've walked right past the counter and gone past the checkpoints and everything without actually doing the proper checks and stuff. And security's following me and yelling at me, and I'm looking at him like, what have I done? Why? So it took a while, and I think it was actually you who came out and said, no, you've got to go back. It's over there. And I'm like feeling a complete dunce.
Well, it was so stupid because you had to go to one location, then get a piece of paper, go to another location, get a stamp or something like that. Then you got to go to another location. It was like 3 or 4 different locations that you had to go through, and there was no proper signage, as in for tourists or whatever else. And like you're saying, a lot of hand motions, and security were like, you know what I mean, like pointing. It was just, it was very hectic.
So we made it over the border, and we went off and did our thing, and I think we pretty much settled in that night and probably had more beers. That's all we did at one stage. And then the next day, day 5, we ended up going to Tool Slang Museum.
It was in the late 80s or 70s,
yes,
where during the Pol Pot, I guess the ruling of Pol Pot, where Pol Pot basically was killing anyone that was and
breathing.
Then again, yeah, that's right. But
it
like
was
it was over communism part again. You know what I mean? So he was pretty much a communist ruler, where he believed that if you were a doctor or a teacher or anyone that actually was essentially a little bit
educated,
a bit more educated or intelligent, you basically you got thrown in jail, and you were
considered a threat.
You were considered a threat. So what's and even I think one Australian actually lost his life. 1 or 2 Australians lost their life because they were sailing around the world, and then he got stopped on with his sort of yacht or whatever it was that he was on, and he got taken to prison, and he got killed there. So it was it was such a opening eye sort of how can I say good history lesson from that point of view. So if anyone's sort of thinking of going to locations like this, I think it's a really good thing to know the actual what happened in the past, you know what I mean, and the understanding of it.
And it's better known as the Genocide Museum that's located in Phnom Penh, which was actually a former secondary school. So it was it used to be a school which they took over and then used it to torture people. And the implements are there, the racks are there, the torture devices are still there. There's skulls and bones left, right, and centre from the people that they killed. Generally speaking, they didn't try and kill them there, but people would die, unfortunately, because of the torture they went through. And that, I think that sort of happened around 1975 from memory. I could be wrong. But it wasn't one prison as such in the whole of Cambodia. There was something like about 21, something like that, prisons scattered throughout. It might have been a lot more as well, but it was, you sort of see this and it's actually quite horrifying. And then you think, oh God, I can't believe a place like this exists. And then you realise, well, hang on a sec, this is not the only version of it. This was scattered in almost every town throughout Cambodia that had these killing, areas, and it was quite disturbing.
You know what? In those locations, I don't think I even took my camera out.
I didn't either.
I kind of felt, very much overwhelmed, and just knowing how many people lost their lives there, it was, to a point where you kind of go, it's disrespectful to take photos, and obviously, and try to, and being both of us being sort of, taking photos in the artistic kind of way. There's no way you can take a photo there that's more artistic. You know what I mean? It's just one of those locations where you kind of go, I want to know about it so it doesn't happen again.
Yeah, if you were doing a documentary, okay, understandable why you would take photos, but there's no other reason to take photos there. I mean, it's not like you're going to put them in your photo album and show people, oh, look at this place, there's to kill people here. There's no reason for it, which actually brings us on to our second location. So we went to the killing fields. So basically the killing fields is where they used to put people in a truck, take them down to a big landfill. They had dug massive holes. They would basically take people there and club them to death and drop them in a hole. Once again,
the bullets were too expensive.
So, and it is a huge shock to the system seeing this. And there were still bones scattered left, right, and centre. Once again, probably not the place to be taking out your phone and doing social media feeds. Yeah, so how did you find that experience? Was that probably one of the biggest eye-opening sort of experiences travelling through Cambodia?
Yeah, look, my experience in that was very eerie, you know what I mean? It was one of those places where you kind of just walk around, you get your little listening device, and every location that you sort of get to, you press a number, which location you're in, and they tell you a bit of a history about it. So it was an eye-opener because I didn't actually know much about the Pol Pot ruling back when I was at school. I didn't learn much about it. But that's probably one of the reasons why I wanted to sort of go to these locations, is because I wanted to know and learn more about it, you know what I mean? So, it was a strange location, to be honest with you. And, it was just one of those things where you kind of go, wow, yeah, like you mentioned, like you're walking around sort of Cambodia, and there's a lot of young people. So there's not a lot of people that are over the age of like 70 or 80, where, in Australia, there is a lot more older population from that perspective. So I think we were talking to one of our guides, and he was saying that in the next, 20 or 30 years, it's going to be very hard for Cambodia because such a huge middle-aged population at the moment. They're like, 2/3 of population is actually quite young at the moment. Yeah. And all the young people now in 20 or 30 years time, they're going to get older, and there's just, the country is going to be it's going to be quite hard for the country to support those people, you know what I mean?
So the next few days we basically did a lot of cycling. So we went through Phnom Penh, when we cycled through Kratie, Katrong. We did a lot of cycling, and it was a great way of experiencing the natural culture there and the people and everything. The heat, though, it took its toll on me. I ended up getting sunstroke. Even a couple of people who lived in the area who came cycling with us, one of them started getting sunstroke, and he's used to it. So you didn't get sunstroke, did you?
No, I didn't. I was drinking a lot of beer. But it was very hot. Like, there's one location that we got to, and we had to jump onto the ferry to go to the island to bike ride there. So it was look, it was fun. It was fun, but then again, you kind of got to sort of really take it easy and drink a lot of water, and obviously understand what you are up for, because the sun was very strong in that space.
Yeah, and then we spent a bit of time on a particular island called Koh Trong. Once again, probably pronouncing completely wrong, and apologies in advance. And that was a really, really small island which basically relied on fishing and tourism to get by. And every second house was a bed and breakfast sort of thing. And there was big groups of people. I think we had at one stage there was 10 of us sleeping on the floor in a lounge room. Yeah,
that was at like a fishing person's house or something. Like, it was actually like you stay with the locals, so it was probably one of the hardest beds I ever slept on. It wasn't really a bed, was it?
It was a piece of material on the floor,
a little futon, like a 2 centimeter futon that was basically on the ground with the and then the pillow was just horrible. But, it was an experience, put it that way. I wouldn't do it again, but it probably was an experience, yeah.
I have to say, what was worse than the pillow and the mattress for me was trying to sleep while there was so much heat. It felt like your skin was just burning off. I just kept waking up, and they had these huge fans on everyone, but the problem was it just wasn't doing it. It was just forcing more heat onto you and creating more heat from the fans themselves. It was, I'd wake up in the middle of the night. I honestly felt like my whole body was just sweating and like melting, and I was going to wake up in the morning, it was just going to be a skeleton in a puddle.
Well, I was going to say, like you don't really get much sleep. And then, 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning, you got a rooster, downstairs screaming his head off, because he's got to wake everyone up. So, it was fun, but it was definitely challenging, I guess, timing, look, for 1-2 nights, it's okay to deal with it. You know what I mean? If we're gonna be there for a whole week, I reckon I'll be like, get me out of there. You know what I mean?
please kill me. But I actually got to try a fruit there, which I've never tried before, and I was actually quite impressed with it. It's called pomelo, which is basically like a grapefruit. I'm not sure if you remember, it was a big yellow sort of. It looked like a yellow grapefruit.
Yeah, I do remember. It was actually quite sweet, wasn't it?
Yeah, it still had a slight bitterness to it, so it's not very much like a typical grapefruit, but it was sweet as well at the same time, and it was really juicy and refreshing. So it was like eating a massive. It's like a grapefruit, but it's not. It's like a cross between a cucumber and a grapefruit, and I actually got addicted to it. I couldn't stop eating it. I don't know what was in it, but
anyway, talking about food, it's the first time ever I actually ate a tarantula. Did you remember
yes,
that?
that's right. Yes, I remember the deep fried tarantulas on the side of the road.
Tarantula, yeah. So we pulled over.
You were trying to convince me, and I was just like, "Yeah, no, that's not going to happen."
It was an interesting taste, put it that way. I'm just looking at a photo at the moment of it, and
in hindsight, you're wondering why you did it.
Yeah, I do. It was very crunchy, but it was full of garlic and whatever else. So it was an interesting, how can I say, taste experience,
So do you think that's going to be like something that's going to pop up in the middle of a menu at KFC or something, southern fried tarantula, with sweet and sour sauce or something?
Well, it's I think it's like a local villagers make it. They catch the tarantulas, and they actually breed them to cook them. You know what I mean? So they have like a tarantula farms, and there wasn't just tarantulas. I didn't eat the others, but they had cockroaches. They had something else as well, and that was actually quite interesting to basically. Yeah, it was grasshoppers, cockroaches, tarantulas.
Yeah, lotus. I think lotus was in there. It was basically anything that they could deep fry was there.
It was an interesting one, put it that way. But not comparing it to a Michelin star restaurant or anything like that. But,
but it was tasty.
Definitely interesting. What was the next one?
So then we went off to the once again I'm getting pronunciation wrong, but the Kratie town, Kratie, Kratie. And what we did was we jumped on some little canoes and we went onto this river, and we were on this river for about half an hour, just sitting there, heading to find dolphins. And, we're sitting there like, we're basically not going to see anything. I'm thinking they're just taking us on a wild goose chase. Now, this river was huge because there was flood waters going through Cambodia at the time when we were there. It was like constantly raining and everything had been flooded. So this river was massive, and we're sitting on this boat and we're in the sun and we're burning, and like we're trying to cover ourselves because the sun was so strong. And suddenly we stop after half an hour, and I'm thinking, I just want to go back. We're not going to see any dolphins. And there was like probably scattered all over this river was like about 40 of these little boats, and you just suddenly see them all diverging into one area, and they're all rushing to get to this one area, and we all get in there, and like you see this dolphin's head stick out of the water and go back down again, and you're like, oh wow, there is dolphins here. And then they'd follow the dolphins around, like stalking them, so that you could actually see them. And I think these dolphins actually are ones that can live in fresh water and sea water, so they're a little bit different. I'm just trying to remember. I think they're called the Irrawaddy dolphins, and they're very rare. So it's an amazing thing to see. I got incinerated for over an hour and a half trying to see these dolphins, and I got to see this little grey thing that sort of jumped out of the water. So, but some people really love that. For me, I was just taking photos of the boats in the river.
Yeah, to me it was a bit of a waste of time. Like you kind of you see a bit of a dorsal fin, whatever it's called, on top, and that's basically it. And you kind of be out there for what 2.5 hours, whatever it was, and it's an experience, I guess. So it's fine. Like what sort of the most memorable thing, and I think that's where we sort of went next as well, was the train thing, right? Which what was it called? The bamboo train, I think it was.
Yeah. So there's a couple of different versions of the bamboo train. What it is actually is in Cambodia. There's only one railway line, and it's basically I think it's used for freight. It's not used for people. So what's happened is there's no public transport as such. So what the people have done is they've literally created their own little trains, which is like a lawnmower motor on it, a wooden slab made out of bamboo.
Well, that was back in the 80s, wasn't it? 80s or 90s or something, right?
Yeah. So they used it. They created these little. Like literally, you could get 4 people sitting on this wooden bench with 2 wheels stuck underneath it, which sat on the railway lines, and they had a motor, and it used to just plummet along.
It's a two-stroke motor. That was just basically it.
And so we sat there. We went through all these different locations on this. It was great fun. If you do go there, I have to say this was the highlight for me.
Yeah.
Sitting on a train made of bamboo, which is literally just a motor stuck to a piece of wood, and off you go. And because it was only one train line, what would happen is people going left, right, and centre, backwards and forwards on it. You would be riding along, and you'd come face to face with another train with people on it. And the way it worked was, whoever had the least amount of people on their train would actually have to get off, dismantle their train, let the one go past, they put it back on, and then keep going. And it took about 30 seconds to dismantle, 30 seconds to put it back on. So it wasn't a huge deal. You can imagine, though, if you're driving along on that and there's like a freight train coming at you, that wouldn't be a lot of fun. But it was a great sensation. I loved it. I took so much video footage, and I've never actually gotten around to actually releasing any of it because I haven't compiled it as yet. I will one day do it. But I have to say that was a highlight. And if you are in Cambodia, you've got to try that train.
Yeah. I totally agree. I think that was definitely the highlight. And if you Google search bamboo train Cambodia, all these different images and videos will pop up. And
possibly us one day.
I think, but I think the whole experience went for about 2 hours max, or an hour and a half.
Yeah, and you can pay more, obviously, because it's not a business as such. It's just independent people who
you're paying like $5 each or something like that, and then
they just drive you around.
Jump on. But they went so quick as well, man. Like I think I don't know what the speed we reached, but it was actually quite fast. I reckon I would have reached probably about 50-60 k's an hour.
Easy. You know what I mean? And no seatbelts or nothing, so if something was to go wrong, you just go flying through the air.
You're pretty stuffed, yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
It was good fun though, I must say. It was a lot of fun.
It was. I got off there, and it was like a child at a fairground. I was like smiling ear to ear.
Yeah, you do. Yeah,
big huge grin. So all ages can enjoy it, even children. And then after that, we made our way to Siem Reap, where we did a lot of cycling. And Siem Reap is actually World Heritage, I believe, that whole area.
Probably would be. Yeah.
So they've got all the different. What's the word for it?
Is it temples?
Temples, that's it. That's the word. Thank you very much.
We jumped on a few bikes and we sort of cycled from one temple to another temple, and it was quite an interesting exercise where we had a support vehicle, and we basically, if you need to have a rest or whatever else, you just jump in the support vehicle, they put your back in the back, and then you just keep moving. But it was just a nice ride. Like the roads around the temples are freshly made because obviously a lot of tourists go there, and obviously they wanted to see it. And the entry is quite expensive. I think we paid I think it was about $50, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was.
3 day pass.
They insisted it was paid in US dollars, and you had to have the exact amount. And so it was a bit of a nightmare trying to get our hands on the money, but we did it. Yeah, so. It
was actually quite nice. I think we did the 3 day pass. Yep. I'm pretty sure by the second day we were all pretty much templed out. Like we were.
Okay,
but done.
It's like we see it in the movies, and they've got like the trees growing through the temples and the cracking through the stones and trees on top of the temples. They actually shot the Tomb Raider, the 2001
Lara
Tomb
Croft.
Raider,
Yeah.
Lara Croft movie there, and now it's no longer known by the official name. It's now referred to as
Tomb Raider Temple. It's actually quite sad, isn't it? It's actually quite sad because of the fact that, just because Hollywood came and they obviously recorded a movie there, they changed the whole name of it almost.
The history and everything. I mean, it's a UNESCO World Heritage Site.
Yeah.
But it's now known as the Tomb Raider Temple. So it was interesting. But some of these temples have got a lot of trees on them, and they're really amazing because it's lush, it's beautiful. You walk through, it's cool, especially during hot weather. And then there's other temples where there's no trees at all, and it is an oven. So just a heads up to anyone who's going to the temples, if you do get a chance to do the ones with the trees, definitely the way to go. The ones without the trees, I was just dying at.
I think, if you go there, definitely worthwhile seeing. I mean, Angkor Wat's beautiful, and then there's a few others that are kind of quite well known, and I can't remember the one with all the route system and everything else, but I could spend a whole day there, no problems. I mean, we only spent about 2 hours there, but I reckon I could just walk around for the whole day, and it's a good idea to get there very early as well, because
there's a lot of people. Yeah.
A lot of people going through it. So we got there fairly early in the morning, and we actually got some really good shots, because the monks were there. Remember the monks?
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's quite a really good contrast, because you kind of go there and everything is sort of rock and green and sort of brown, like a roots of the trees, and then all of a sudden in the middle of that you got a monk all in orange sort of robes and whatever else, and a very contrasty, very impressive sort of colors from that. You know what I mean? Yeah,
there was a whole bunch of tourists there, and sorry, going there early in the morning is really good because it's also cooler, so you don't have, if you go there in the middle of the day when the temperature's out, you're going to fry. So we went there and we ended up taking photos of the tourists. There was a lady there who was from Vietnam, and she was wearing the whole the Vietnamese garb as such, and I think it's called a Daya. I'm not even going to try and pronounce that one, but it's Aodai. It's that typical Vietnamese dress with a really tight-fitting, long, flowing dress, and she was a tourist, and I ended up getting a whole bunch of shots of her, and they came out really amazing. So I got to take photos of not only the monks, but also the tourists themselves, who made the shots fantastic.
Yeah, I agree. Look, people go there for the experience, I guess, as well, and if they wear their traditional robes, like just very similar to India when we went to India. You remember, like a lot of traditional robes, a lot of clothing, and it makes it so much more interesting and different. You know what I mean? So
yeah, as opposed to torn jeans,
make a huge difference. Yeah.
We also went to the Angkor Wat complex, which is that huge building. I think it's on their is it on their flag? That's actually where I ended up using the tripod as you did, and we set up our cameras to do a closing time with no people in their photo. And as we set up our cameras, I saw on the side of me this guy fidgeting, and he was with his girlfriend. I'm not sure if you remember this. And I took my camera off the tripod because I clicked straight away what was about to happen. I saw it in his eyes. He was fidgety. He was nervous. He was going to propose. So I ended up basically, and they're from Italy, by the way, and I ended up taking my camera off and I put it on auto, fast mode, burst, and I just was waiting for it, and bang, he proposed, right? And I took every single photo that, of every sort of, it was really cool.
Yeah, they were cheering. I
ended up talking to him afterwards and gave him all the photos. So I sent them to him via email, and they were so happy with him. But I actually look back at that picture, and that makes it, even more special for me, because it was something that I was involved in there, and I love weddings and proposals and stuff. I do a lot of those as well.
I wanted to sort of talk about the people in Cambodia, because I think Cambodia is sort of getting to a point now where they're gearing up for a lot more tourism, and the tourism does bring money into the country a lot, and I'm pretty sure slowly they actually trying to obviously push that forward, because obviously they see the future in it as well. And they've got so many amazing locations, and definitely. And I mean, look, the people were amazing. I actually found Cambodian people a lot more inviting and friendly than Vietnamese people. Not no offense to Vietnamese people, I loved it as well. But comparing the two, I think one stage we were buying beer on the street, and you can buy beer in the Cambodian currency and in American dollars. Anyway, I think it was about $3 or $4 and I was buying like 3 or 4 beers, and literally the change was like 25 cents or something like that. And then she didn't speak much English. It was actually a young girl, probably about 14, 15 years old, selling beer, unheard of in Australia. But anyway,
I was gonna say.
But she was like, "I'll give you change," and then I was like, "No, don't worry about it. I don't want change." And then literally, she was like insisting for me to have that change, and I was just like, "No." And then she literally ran across the street,
almost getting hit by a car.
Yeah, like motorbikes or whatever. Change. And then she got the money, and then she was like adamant that she had to give me change, and I was like, "No, it's for you. Keep it." And it was like, for me, like in Vietnam, I didn't experience that. I mean, lovely people in Vietnam, and really enjoy talking to people. And look, Vietnam is kind of a lot more advanced than Cambodia from a tourism point of view. They've got, a lot more, I guess, infrastructure for tourism. A lot more people speak English there as well. And just from that perspective, definitely a lot more advanced. But the Cambodian people, when she did that, I was just like, it was so nice. And I thought, look, at not one stage in both Cambodia and Vietnam, I actually felt like, like we're going to be obviously victim of pickpocketing or whatever else. I was actually really confident. I mean, there was 4 of us and we're all fairly big guys, you know what I mean? So if they did try it and one of us saw it, they would have, it wouldn't be an interesting sight, put it that way, But, at the end of the day, I was actually quite impressed with both countries. And I think Cambodia, just for the people itself, they really stood out for me. And it was just a really nice location, you know what I mean? Definitely would love to go back.
Fantastic. I mean, when we talk about tourism in Cambodia, there was also, they've created like tourist spots in the city or the towns. Like, for example, I'm going to mention a name to you and you're going to go, oh yeah, remember Pub Street?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. So Pub Street is it's a dedicated street, and it's quite a long street, and it's dedicated to just
not really for the kids though.
Well, look, I
maybe
wouldn't
during
be
the day.
Yeah, and look, even during the night, it was still remotely civil. Like, I mean, most of these streets towns that have these types of streets, they're not good. Like, Bali, for example, they're not the types of places you want to take your kids. But this one was actually quite civilized. I thought probably in the scheme of things, you could probably take your kids down here. You'd probably have to supervise them, but it was interesting. It wasn't like our experience. We went to a street in Vietnam when we first got there, and I was horrified. People like young children, 3 years old, in the street begging for money with their 6-month-old brothers lying in their arms, and rats running up and down the street and stuff like that. And people pole dancing and inviting you in for a massage, and that sort of thing. This wasn't the same sort of thing. It was actually, by comparison, it was quite wholesome. So it's an interesting area. I mean, look, it's got its seededness to it, and there were, a few years ago, there were issues there, or 5-10 years ago, it wasn't a great spot to be at. But as of 2025, it was actually a really nice place, and there was some family-orientated places you could go to. So, it wasn't strip bars left, right, and centre or anything like that.
Yeah, so I agree. So in Cambodia, the pub street was a little bit more civilized. Vietnam, unfortunately, it was a bit more full on in your face. And one of the guys that we went with, he got a bit happy at one stage, and he got invited, and I was like behind him. I said, "No, mate, you're not going in there, mate." And I just need to go to the toilet. And I said, "No, this is not the toilet, mate. you gotta go straight. No, you gotta keep walking, mate, because you're gonna lose everything." So it was an interesting trip, put it that way, from that perspective. But
it was.
But going back into sort of photography and gear, which gear do you feel like you sort of brought too much or not enough, or do you feel like just right?
Honestly, I probably the the 15 to 35 I left in the hotel most of the time. I didn't take it out. So that could have been left at home. The 24 to 105, I've always said that size is the perfect travel lens. It was a perfect lens. It was the bigger version. It was the Mac Daddy of the 24 to 105, very heavy. Once again, it wasn't the most comfortable thing to carry around, but it did the job. In that sense, yeah, I think that's probably the lens I would actually recommend to anyone traveling, unless you're going specifically to try and do like bird stuff where you'd want to use a much bigger lens, or if you're just doing landscape photography where you'd want to use like a 15 to 35. But as an all-purpose, all-rounder lens, 24-105 is the key. The GoPro, once again, that was being used left, right, and center. It was fantastic. Lots of fun with that. So I'm feeling, I brought the right amount. 15-35 could have been left at home.
Yeah. And what about the Mr. filters and other things? Do you feel like, it was a good idea to bring them down?
Look, the problem with filters is if you don't bring them, you're going to find a situation where you go, oh shit, I should have brought it. ND filters, like you don't always need them, but there's one time where you go, oh damn, this would have been a perfect shot, and it's usually the best shot of the whole trip, and you curse yourself for not bringing it. But I went there for photography, and that was my main purpose. So I bit the bullet. I think at this stage, I was quite happy with what I took with me. Yourself?
I think I was as well. The combination that I had, I feel like it was really good. The drone was quite a good option, I think, as well, because it's such a small drone, and I feel like there was a couple of good shots that I managed to get from that, which kind of worked out right well. And I do a bit of stock photography and video as well, so I kind of got to go there and obviously use those images of temples and other things, and obviously try to make some money out of it too. But at the end of the day, I think it was just right. I mean, for time lapsing, the GoPro was fantastic. I think that it was one of those small little cameras that are definitely worthwhile checking, and the DJI Action 5 was amazing for night shots as well. So the ISO on it is just phenomenal. I think I pretty much used everything that I brought with me, including once or twice the ND filter too. So yeah, look, I've got the Peter McKinnon 225 ND, and look, I use that a lot for all my shoots, for my A7S III, for my small video compact on the gimbal, and I can really turn down the actual exposure and bring it up if I need to. If I go inside or outside, it's just enough. I mean, it would have been nice to have 6 or 7 stops, but 225 is actually quite good.
So at this point, we said goodbye to Cambodia and made our ways to Vietnam. We specifically went to Da Nang at this point. So that was day 17. Now, I'm gonna put a bit of an intermission here, because what ended up happening was we flew from Cambodia to Vietnam, and we bought tickets, and they were actually quite cheap for airfares, at the time. We were like, oh, these are really cheap. So we get onto the plane, and I go to sit down, and it suddenly dawned on me that my legs were too long and I did not fit in the chairs. And it was problematic because I couldn't actually get my butt down onto the chair. I was probably 30 centimeters off the chair. And I'm thinking, what am I going to do? I actually do not fit physically. And, so I got up and walked to the back of the plane, and I said to the stewardesses, I said, look, I don't fit in my chair. And they said, oh, well, look, just sit down for now and we'll sort it out once we're flying. And I'm like, no, you don't understand. I can't get into my chair. Because what they've done is they've reduced the size of leg space in these planes, because people who are from Cambodia and Vietnam are generally not as tall as Westerners, and I'm 6'3", so most people in the Western countries aren't as tall as me in the first place. So they had removed the leg space to the point where I just couldn't fit in there. And what ended up happening was the flight was completely booked out. So they had nowhere to put me. And I said to them, I'm happy to sit at the back like I'm on a bus standing up. I said, I'm happy to do that. I don't have a problem. And they're like, no, we can't do that. And I'm like, well, okay, well, what do you want me to do? So they're all sitting around in like there's 5 stewardesses trying to figure it out. None of them could figure out what was going on. And then finally one of them thought, let's remove the handle. Now, I'm in an aisle seat, so I was in the center of the plane. And one of them came up with the great idea of removing the handrest and having me sit sideways with my legs in the aisle. And so, yeah, the plane takes off. I'm strapped in my seat with a seatbelt. I'm sitting sideways. Everyone else is forward facing, and I'm facing the window, looking at the wing. And then proceeded for the rest of the trip to get my legs hit every time they put the trolley past. And you were having the best time of your life laughing at me the whole time. And all right, so we've gotten to Da Nang. And the first thing we did when we got there, we actually got onto the Heritage HD2 train, which is an old school diesel train that basically travels up the coastline between the mountains and the coast. So we get off the train, we walk around, see some tombs, we see this, we see that, the normal stuff people do. And then we basically went off, and the highlights for me in this particular area were Lady Buddha, the temple for Lady Buddha and Lady Buddha herself. It's a huge monument. Marble Mountain and the An Phu Cave. I'm not sure if you remember that cave. They've actually got elevators to get in and out of this. This is a massive complex on the side of a mountain, and there's like walking trails and caves that you go into. It's truly amazing. Very steep, very slippery as well, I might add. But I actually didn't go into the cave because I just went, you know what, I'm not going to fit. So you went in with the other guys. How was it?
Big, slippery, and a lot of people. Yeah, look, it was an interesting experience. I think I think probably best one was when we got to the top of the actual mountain itself. The view was just great. You know what I mean? It was one of those locations where you kind of get yourself in really fit. Number one, to be able to see most of it, and because it's such a huge location, it sort of feels like you really need to be able to, jump into, I don't know, a motorbike or tuk-tuk or whatever else you want to do, and then get them to take you around, which obviously costs money as well. We did this whole trip on the budget, so it was one of those things where you kind of go, let's walk it and then see how it goes. I think at one stage you went on a motorbike or something, didn't you? And that was quite a interesting little thing.
Everything there is interesting.
Yeah, with your size.
Yeah, with my size, yeah. No, actually, I was on the back of a motorbike because I thought to myself, you know what, I've got a license, I know how to ride a motorbike, but in this traffic, I'd rather someone else who knows the local traffic take me around. This guy's going up the hills, and steep hills. Like, if I was riding the bike myself, I would have hesitated going up these hills. So I'm on the back and I'm weighing this bike down, and I could feel the front wheel lifting off the ground. It was going to flip. And he just kept going. He was determined to get us to the top of this mountain. And he's like, nah, nah, nah. I just kept feeling the bike wobbling side to side. And I'm thinking, we're going to flip and we're going to roll down this hill, and I'm going to get killed by the motorbike while it rolls over me. So halfway up the hill, I sort of went, look, hey, thank you. Here's your money. I'll walk the rest of the way. It's safer, and I know that I'll actually make it there in one piece. But yeah, no, it was good, and the fees were like minimal as well.
Yeah, I think it was, you pay for what, $1 or $2 or something like that, wasn't it? American.
Yeah, it was. You don't even think about it. You just throw the money at them.
Yeah, look, it was one of those locations where very similar from a freedom almost perspective, like India and Nepal was. We sort of go there and they just jump on the tuk-tuk, go down wrong way on the street or whatever else. 7
people on a tuk-tuk
just to get you. Yeah, so it was an interesting place. Still, I think it's definitely worthwhile going there and experiencing for sure.
Yeah. I think at the end of that day, we went down to the bottom of the mountain and we sat there because we got told that there was like something was going to happen. So we went down and they had this seating on the opposite side of the road. And we sat down on this stadium seating looking at a mountain face. And we're like, what's going on? And they said, this is the Bat Cave. And I'm like, and then suddenly we noticed something black coming out of the mountain. And we're just like, what in the world is it? And this funnel of bats just came out, and it was thousands upon thousands per minute of bats coming out of this cave, and it just wouldn't stop. And we sat there for over 30-40 minutes watching these bats flying out in thousands, and they just kept going. You could see them going into the horizon. After the bat experience, we made our way back to Melbourne.
Yeah, I mean, the flight is not that long as well, is it? Like, I think for us it was only 8-hour flight, and there was a direct flight too. So if anyone is in Melbourne, I highly encourage going to Ho Chi Minh City. And what was that? There was a song that they were singing on the way back from Ho 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 Chi Minh, and the tickets are actually really cheap as well. I'm pretty sure we picked up return Melbourne Ho Chi Minh City return. It was like $500.
Yeah, it was something ludicrously cheap, but it's definitely if you want to try something different, it is a place to be. I thoroughly recommend and enjoyed it completely.
Totally agree.
Well, that's into another episode. This one's actually been quite a long and lengthy episode. Thank you very much, Marty, for joining me again after such a long break from the show, and I thoroughly enjoyed catching up with you again, even though it wasn't in person.
Definitely, mate. All right, have a good one. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Take care and stay safe.